Hi again. Today I want to talk about what to do about well-meaning people who want to give you medical advice if you've had a crappy diagnosis. And I guess this could also apply to other life situations, the loss of a job, a divorce, or something like that. But in my case, it's a crappy diagnosis, so that's what I can speak to. And look, I confess, I'm guilty. I was one of these people, right? Everybody knows how they would treat cancer until they get it. And then you're not so sure. For instance, I am into natural health therapies. And in fact, I write for Natural Health magazine. And I've read a lot about alternative remedies for cancer and natural treatments of cancer. And I tried to use them. I was diagnosed in April of 2015. I had radiation to my spine, which was very effective. I declined chemo twice and said, no, thank you. I'll just do my hippie diet and supplements and I'll be fine. And guess what? I wasn't. Follow-up scans showed that the disease had progressed. And so I went back to the same place where I was treated initially. That's Cancer Treatment Centers of America, because I do like their integrative approach to treating cancer. And the reason that I went back there was because while I was there receiving radiation treatments, I personally met several individuals who had basically been sent home to die from their original doctors and who had left there with clear scans. I think that's a pretty good testimonial. That's kind of, that's walking the walk. You know what I mean? Walking the talk, whatever. And so it's the proof in the pudding, right? So I thought, you know what? Maybe that's where I need to go. And that's why I went back. And that's why I chose to have chemotherapy, even though I was one of those people who was never in a million years going to have chemotherapy, because I met people who had it and who lived. I also know people who had it and who did not. But there are also a lot of people who tried alternative and natural therapies alone who did not. So I guess my message is there's not one right road for everybody. We're all here on our individual journeys, our individual paths, and the bottom line is you have to choose the treatment, the practitioner, the protocol, whatever, that feels right to you. And how do you do that? I wish I had a magic answer. I don't. But I will say this. Almost any decision that is fear-based is not going to be in your best interest. So when you receive a crappy diagnosis, if you are hurried along through the process, I would say take a little time. Believe me, I speak from experience. I was diagnosed at stage 4. So if you want to talk about urgency, then there is no stage 5. So there's your urgency, right? And I did receive the radiation treatment because my back was in such horrible shape. But again, I declined the chemotherapy for a long time. Maybe that was a good idea. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I tend to think it wasn't a bad idea because at the time, I believed chemotherapy would harm me more than it would help me. And I believe very much, we already talked about the power of the placebo effect, and that is believing something will help you when it does. And the nocebo effect, believing something will harm you, and it does. And at the time, I believed it would harm me. So when I went back, it was with a different perspective. And I think that that's why I went through my treatments without really having any kind of negative effect. Lynn McTaggart, a renowned researcher and journalist who wrote a book called The Field, about this invisible field that encompasses everything. The field to me is God, but that's another topic for another talk. But anyway, speaks to this. She obviously is also a natural health advocate, and she says she used to tell people when she would whenever she learned they had a diagnosis or that they were planning on doing chemotherapy or were, oh, chemotherapy only works X% of the time. And she said, you know what? I quit doing that because I realized it served no useful purpose. What works is what you believe will work. And I believe that that's true. Now, having said that, you also don't want to choose a doctor, practitioner, whatever, who is simply going through the motions of treating you. There is intention involved here, and you definitely want a practitioner who believes that you can get better. And so it's important that you have confidence in the one or the team who is treating you, or in the protocol that you choose to use if you're doing something on your own. It's important that you have that confidence and that belief, because that is a huge part of everything. My confidence comes from the fact that I'm using conventional and alternative therapies together, an integrative approach to healing. And so far, I feel great. And maybe I'm not supposed to be here still. Like I said, I don't know. Didn't ask for a prognosis because I don't care. So, but I'm confident in my treatment team. This came up because I had a conversation yesterday with someone who was going to try to, talk to me about the dangers of chemotherapy and how it was ineffective. And I said, you know what? That's a conversation you can have with someone else, somewhere else, because I'm not interested in listening to that. Sorry. So, this is your life. You need to stand up for yourself. If other people's feelings get hurt, well, that's too bad. Are you willing to die to save someone else's feelings? I'm not. So I consider myself a pretty nice person, but I ain't going that far, okay? So if you are in kind of the same boat, and let me tell you, once you get a diagnosis too, you're going to get a lot of information from a lot of well-meaning people who really do love you and care about your health and your well-being, and they're going to send you every article that they find on the internet about how this heals cancer and that heals cancer, and the pharmaceutical industry is trying to suppress the treatment of cancer, and that may be true. I mean, God knows they make a lot of money off of this disease. I don't deny it. But I will say this. If frozen lemon peels healed cancer, people wouldn't die of cancer no matter what the pharmaceutical companies wanted, right? Because it's not like they're prohibiting you from freezing lemons. Okay? Essential oils, I think, play a major role, or can play a complementary role in helping you feel better and doing a lot of things and keeping your body, healthy. And maybe there are a handful of people who've been healed using only essential oils, and more power to them. But again, no one's prohibiting you from buying those. So if you want to incorporate them into whatever you're using, whatever protocol, fine, that's great. But on the other hand, if that were the answer, I don't think people would be dying of cancer, because they're pretty much accessible to everybody. So that's the thing. See, with the alternative stuff is there's all this information out there, but you can't really take a scattershot approach to treating this. You need a team. You need someone who, because you can try this and then try this and then try that and try that, and then it's a scattershot approach and nothing works. You need something more targeted. That's my opinion. That's what works for me. If something else works for you and you believe in it, do it. So how do you determine? Okay, so if people send you stuff, I don't believe in throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So yeah, I get some crazy stuff like, yeah, okay, well, whatever. I think the key is to being in a place that's not fearful and asking, just sitting with that. Okay, does this make sense? Maybe you do a little more research. You get an article on something, someone sends you, there's YouTube videos of interviews of all kinds of professionals regarding all kinds of different approaches, right? Watch one or 10 or whatever. And if something feels right to you and you think, I think this could help me, by all means, run it by your doctor if you want to. I advise you to do that, just because there are some interactions between natural remedies and conventional therapies potentially, and you want to avoid that. As I mentioned, I take several supplements, and a couple of supplements I take don't work well within 24 or 48 hours of an infusion of a therapeutic chemotherapeutic drug. But I have a naturopath on my team, yay, who I love, and she is endlessly patient with me and all of my questions. When I say, okay, I read an article about this, what do you think about it? And she'll either say, yay, I think that's a great thing for you to integrate into your treatment, or I'm not sure of its effectiveness, but it can't hurt, so go ahead. Or don't do it within 48 hours of your infusion. Like ginseng is something I take for energy. I don't take it within 48 hours of an infusion. So that's just kind of a little guideline maybe. If you are going through something like this and you've had a diagnosis, and well-meaning people keep throwing information at you, it's okay to say, you know what, I'm very grateful. We talked about gratitude, right? I am very grateful that you care so much about me. And if you find something that you think would be useful to me, by all means, I'm open. But I am pretty confident in the decision that I have made in my treatment. And so I hope you don't mind if I don't debate the downside of it with you, because frankly, that's not useful. And I'm only interested in what's useful. So that's it for today. So that's the bottom line. Choose a path. And it doesn't mean that your paths can't kind of meander. It's okay. You're going to maybe take a few steps this way. And again, I'm going to go back to my original thing is be in conversation with the Holy Spirit, which I have been from the beginning, and that's been my prayer. Please put the right people and protocols in front of me so that I know, I want to get better. Show me how to get better. Please place all the right information in front of me. And if I am going down the wrong path, please slam that door in my face so that I know it's the wrong path and I don't pursue it any more than I have to. That's my own personal approach, is asking the Holy Spirit for help all the time. I also pray to angels. Archangel Raphael is the angel of healing. So if that feels good to you, that's fine. And Yeshua, Jesus, is always there. And so you can always pray to him for help too. And again, always, God is everywhere all the time. If it doesn't feel too big to go straight to the top guy, by all means do it. But if you need an intermediary, the Holy Spirit is a pretty good one. And that's what he's there for, to be that bridge. And remember also to move you from fear into confidence, and from fear into love, from fear into faith. All this is together. Remember, you can't make good decisions when you're sitting in fear. So that's one of the things you want to do, is move me out of fear and into confidence, and then I can make better decisions. So that's what works for me, and maybe it will work for you. And to all the people who have given me suggestions for things, I thank you and I love you, and I appreciate the fact that you are trying to help me.